I have this friend, and his name's Jerry. I've known Jerry about a decade now, and through the years, about this time of year, Jerry tells his story about where he was on November 22nd, 1963. I decided this year would be the year I would record Jerry's recollections, so I tracked him down.
The morning my mom took me out of school, I was in 6th grade at David G. Burnett Elementary, and I was a big admirer of Kennedy. Kennedy was when he was elected for president, a lot of young people admired him, from college age people all the way down to elementary, because John F. Kennedy was one of the youngest presidents elected at that time. And he was coming to Dallas, and this, I was very young and I didn't know the reason why he was coming to Dallas, which of course he was coming to Dallas because Texas was an important state for him to be re-elected, and that's why he was coming to Dallas. And there was stuff in the paper that showed exactly what motorcade, where the motorcade would go down to, and they were going to the convention center, or the trade center at the time. That's where he was going to have his speech, and that's off of Inwood Road. And we were thinking about going to see him at the intersection of Harry Hines and Inwood Road to see the motorcade coming by there. But a friend of mine, which was a friend of my parents, Harry Owens, he was a Delta airline pilot, and my mom was talking to Pat, his wife. They were good friends, and she told Harry, and he said, well, why don't we go see him at Love Field, because we can see him get off the plane, because he was going to use the Delta place where the Delta planes came in to land at Love Field to get off the plane at. And he thought we might be able to see him closer, being at the Delta parking lot, and that's where we ended up going to see him. Of course, that morning it was cloudy and it was drizzly and stuff, and a lot of people thought it was going to rain, and we thought we'd be lucky to see him, because he'll be riding in a limousine with the top up. But of course, when he landed at Love Field, it was bright, sunny, shining day with a cloud in the sky. All the rain, all the clouds went away. And the first person that got off the plane when he landed at Love Field was Jacqueline Kennedy. She was the first one. Then he followed her. And I mean, the crowd just roared when she got off.
So when they got off the plane there, you remember what kind of plane it was? I mean,
it was a 747 Air Force One. I was in the front, being a kid with my sister, and so we were in front of everybody, and Harry Owens was behind us. My mom wasn't in the picture, neither was Pat. They were too far away from the camera, but we were right in the right-hand corner. And my mom saw the photograph when she went to the 6th floor museum one time with some friends from Missouri, and they saw that and said, "There's my son there." I was wearing a Boy Scout cap. The limousine came by, and Kennedy was sitting in the limousine, and he was no more than 5 feet away from me. He waved at me, and as they were going barely 2 or 3 miles an hour. They weren't going very fast at all. Well, after he got by and everything, and being in the Delta parking lot, we were able to get out of left field pretty quick. And Harry Owens, he was kind of a strange character, but as we were going home, he said something that I will always remember. He said, "Boy, if anybody wanted to get to Kennedy, this is the day to do it. And because it was so clear and everything. And by the time we got, my mom took me back to Burnett. And by the time I got up there, because people knew that, I was absent, and they knew I went to left field, and they told me and said, "Did you know that the president had shot?" And I said, "Man, I just saw him an hour ago." He said, "Yeah, he'd been shot in Dallas." And I remember sirens just going on all over this town. I mean, they went from 12:30 when he was shot till late at night. Sirens were just going all over this town. It's just police all over, And of course, everybody knows what happened, with the Tippett and catching Oswald at the theater and the limousine, and everybody knows the story. But and then the next day seemed things were very quiet because nobody was open, everybody was closed, and everybody was watching the television. A lot of people out there, a lot of people had signs and stuff. Believe it or not, Richard Nixon just left left field. He was in the night before in Dallas doing speeches and stuff. He left about 30 minutes to an hour from left field before Kennedy came in.
After the interview, we looked back at the footage of Kennedy's arrival at Dallas left field on YouTube. I was struck by a few things. One was the Confederate flag waving in the wind, and the other was simply the sheer number of people at the airport. The last thing was how the voiceover kept reminding everyone watching of the precise route the motorcade would be taking that day. Jerry later explained that the Confederate flag was being waved by a high school kid and that was their school flag. I said earlier that I tracked Jerry down because Jerry's homeless now and has been living in his car for more than a year. If you want to see what Jerry looked like 48 years ago, make sure you look for the kid standing against the fence at Love Field and wearing his Cub Scout ball cap. If you never visited that museum in downtown Dallas, it's a Schoolbook Depository building, 6th floor museum. Be sure and visit if you get a chance. Once we were done with the interview, Jerry told me he had a couple of things he wanted to correct and also a couple of other observations about that day. So this is a postscript to this interview. A while ago we were talking about the plane that landed. What kind of plane was it that landed that day?
707.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. And now you want to tell me something else about school that day. What happened?
Okay.
Or I guess the next day. I'm not sure.
Okay, and I don't know the first name of the people, like Miss Mayberry, which was our principal. She was on the loudspeaker and telling everybody that they would not allow any students to go home or their parents pick them up till certain times. She didn't say what time. She just said that everybody needs to stay in their homeroom classes until they figure out what's going on, because they just didn't want kids get on the streets and stuff like this with, the president just being shot, I guess. I don't know. And I remember, and then she put it on KLIF, which was the big station in town, over the loudspeaker so we could hear what was saying over the radio and everything. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, the first thing I remembered was KLIF was talking about there was 2 planes that came in. One of them was the media plane, the other one was the 707 Air Force One. And the media plane was the first one that left. And they, on KLIF, they're saying, yeah, the media plane is just taking off right now. Everybody was hanging out the window thinking that was the Air Force One, because Burnett was in the flight pattern from low field, so most of the planes flew over it. And well, the media plane flew over, and everybody was waving it and everything. But that one, the president plane, then on KLIF, that says, yeah, the Air Force One's fixing to take off. And I was able to see Air Force One take off the light blue plane. I remember seeing it, and it flew over Burnett. And about 3 o'clock that afternoon, they let us go out and play basketball outside. And about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, of course, school was out at 3 o'clock. We were still at school at 5 o'clock that evening, and Coach Lynch was talking to us about casting a vote with a bullet. And that was kind of, I remember he saying, when you cast a vote with a bullet, that's the worst thing you can do. And he was talking about the assassination that day. And of course, I didn't live too far from Burnett when they let everybody out. It was about 5:30, and I went on home. And I only lived like 2 blocks from the school.
When you got home, what was it like at the house? Were your parents already there waiting for you? Or?
Yeah, my dad closed his 5 and dime store business, and everybody was watching television. Of course, everybody was watching Walter Cronkite. That's the one that we watched. Mm-hmm. And it was on 24 hours a day till the president was buried. That was the first time television was on 24-hour a day, because they always signed off about 11, 12 o'clock at night.
So that's the beginning of what we have now, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. Was there anything else you can think of?
No, that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that story with me, Jerry, after all this time. You told me more than once, but I've always wanted to get it down on and record it. So I hope everybody else gets something out listening to this, because there's not many people around that were eyewitnesses to history like that on that particular day.